can.
I could.
Yeah, you've met him.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
The board is no longer in non-public. We'll reopen our public meeting. At this point, I would like to move on to nominations, resignations, retirements, and correspondence.
Can I just add, Tom Enright
Oh,
and
thank you.
Cindy Van Conen joined at 6:15. Yeah,
No,
six-
like 6:05 and 6:07, something like that.
we weren't
Cindy
even
at
in the room
6:05.
yet.
No, it was like,
Okay,
6:05, 6:08, yeah,
okay.
she saw it. Thank you, Gina.
I do not have any nominations, resignations, or retirements, but I did want to share with the public and those people tuning in that the board will be reaching out through the superintendent to our support staff union to discuss entering into discussions around a sidebar related to compensation. So I will do that with the union president, and then I will notify and work with the board representatives to bring that committee together and to have discussions around the compensation issue. Okay?
Thank you so much. Okay, so at this point, we need to approve some minutes. First set of minutes is the Hollis Brookline School Board of August 31st, 2022. The following amendments were offered. Page 3, line 43, delete A before family and consumer science room. Page 5, line 20, correct the spelling of matter. Page 8, line 13, correct the spelling of two. And page 11, line 44, insert B following would. And page 16, line 20, correct the spelling of B. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Beth,
Second by Tom.
second by Tom. I think we were all here, right? Doesn't look like we weren't, so, all those in favor? 700. Motion carries. Okay. I also need a motion to accept the non-public minutes of August 31st, 2022, as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Beth,
Second.
second by Tom. Any comments? Okay, all those in favor? 700. That also carries. Okay, and we're running a smidge behind, but we're gonna open the floor for public input. We did have a change in the state RSA, SB 410, effective September 6, 2022, which requires 30-minute of public comment. We have an amendment in our district policy, which is included under deliberations. So we're gonna open the floor for public comment. We'll accept public comment. When public comment is completed, we will close the floor for public comment, but for the, however much time is remaining, if someone were to enter and want to make a public comment during the remaining time, we would reopen the floor and allow them to comment.
At an appropriate time.
At an appropriate time, we could either ask them to do it then or, so that's how we're gonna run public input. Before I open the floor for public input, please make sure that if you have input, we'd like you to state your name and address for the record. We ask that you keep your, comments focused on things on the agenda, and we ask that you're respectful and, you know, we are not here to go back and forth. We don't respond to public comment. We take the input in, and if we feel like we need to make a correction or a comment, we'll do so during the discussion portion of the evening. So, at this point, I'd like to open the floor for public comment. Go ahead. Sure. Yes. Yeah, come on over.
So, my name is Megan King. I am the head cook in Hollis Brookline High School, and I live at 7 Maxwell Drive in Brookline.
Thank you.
A
Oh,
problem
one more
I
thing,
want.
Megan, sorry, before you start, we do have a 3-minute.
Okay, it's 3 minutes, okay. A problem I want to address came to my attention. It is about the food service workers' pay. New hires with no experience are being paid considerably more than current staff, and considerably more than the first step on the pay chart. I met with my manager and then met with the head of HR and the finance person about this issue. I don't see there is a clear plan on how they're going to address this. My concern, being head cook at the high school, is I'm going to lose my skilled staff. We are supposed to have 6 people in our kitchen, but had been working short-staffed for 1.5 years. I am aware because of this pay issue, some of the kitchen staff have currently are currently looking for a new job outside of the SAU. People are insulted that new hires with zero experience are being paid considerably more than employees with several years' experience. My wish is that a solution to this problem is not dragged out the next month or two so that the HS kitchen can retain the skilled staff that we currently have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan. Are there any other comments? Okay, at this point, I'm gonna close the floor for public comment. It is currently 7:04, so we opened it around 7:02, I would say, 7:02. So we have about a half an hour for people to come in, between now and about 7:34 is what I'll give you. If you come in between now and then, you're welcome to make a comment. Not necessarily at that moment, but when we deem appropriate. Okay. Moving on, principals and athletic report. And I'm gonna ask that we, have, if the students would like to make a report, they're welcome to do so at the, whenever you guys all work that out, okay?
You guys wanna go?
Okay. If the students would like to go first, that would be fine, and then, in general, we've always allowed students to make the report, and you're welcome to stay and watch our process, because it's fascinating. Or you're welcome to, go on home if you'd like to as well. So,
Go
We
study.
appreciate your input during
we do,
discussion and stuff.
we
so
do like
it's
having you
not-
around, so. So how are we gonna order this? Tim, students first? Would you like to hear the principal's reports first, so that you get a sense of what they do? How about we start with Mr. West? So, he's the,
So our student open house days. Student open house days were a great success again. We had about 75% of our students come to the building for those days to check out their schedule, try their locker, tour the building, and collect their district Chromebook and charger. Opening weeks of school also went great. The opportunity to work with their new teachers, classmates, their academic classes, spend some rock time. And we had one of our first all-school assemblies in a couple years in the gym, where we recognized different students and staff for some early year recognitions. Big item tonight is our Washington DC proposal. We're proposing our 4-day 8th grade Washington DC trip for April of 2023. This would be offered for all 8th grade students, including an opportunity to visit several national museums, memorials, including the White House, Mount Vernon, the Smithsonian's, Holocaust Museum, and Arlington National Cemetery. We hope to have a few students be a part of the wreath laying ceremony. We can go over that itinerary, I think, after.
yes,
the
that would be
proposal.
during the discussion portion of the evening.
We're excited for our first in-person parent open house in 3 years tomorrow night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Parents will receive their student schedule that their students have remade, and they'll bring home to their parents tomorrow, and they'll follow their child's schedule tomorrow night when we'll have 10-minute classes and bells will be running. We have 8th grade PSATs going on Wednesday, October 19th. 8th graders, for 8th grade only, sorry. PTSA, we've met last week, and we are gonna start planning our Halloween dance, which is gonna be October 28th from 7 to 9 p.m. We're looking for parent chaperones who are vetted by the vetted volunteers through the SAU. So if there's any parents out there or any of you that wanna come to the Halloween dance, please feel free to let us know. It was a great event last year, and we're excited again to offer that this year.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions for Patrick or comments? So it sounds like it was a smooth opening.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah,
That's
2 years in
good.
a row.
Good job, Patrick. Great. And we'll have more to talk about when we get to DC, I'm sure. There'll be some questions.
Yep.
Okay, so that will be, we'll move on to Tim, and you'll do, Brian, are you gonna do him
Yep, I'll do
first?
Brian now, and athletics update from Mr. Bumpus. Our fall sports season is off to a great start. Our boys soccer team is still undefeated, including a big win over the defending state champs Lebanon. They went up there and beat them 1-0 on their grass field, which is a big win for us. Both girls soccer and girls volleyball are both having strong seasons with 1 loss. Field hockey was sitting at 3-2. I believe they're 4-2 as of this evening. And our football team took home their first victory last week. Our cheer, golf, cross country, bass fishing, and Unified teams are all up and running. Unified just had their first game and victory of the season just before our meeting here tonight. They took on Bow and came home with had a big win on our turf field. We have our homecoming weekend planned for the Friday the 30th and Saturday the 1st. Full slate of athletic events starting after school on Friday and running through Saturday afternoon. And then the weekend will wrap up with a homecoming dance on Saturday night. And then our athletic teams were fully represented out at Old Homes Day this past weekend, helping out with the setup and breakdown of everything, but also sponsoring their own booths. HBMS Athletics has also had their fall season underway, and both soccer teams opened up with wins. Field hockey dropped a close one, it looks like, and cross country is also off to a good start. If you haven't been up to the turf field, the press box is now functional with stairs, which is always helpful to get up. I actually took in, it was the girls' game yesterday. They beat John Stark 1-0 yesterday, and I was up there with Mr. Bumpus overseeing the scoreboard and watching the game. So the next steps are electricity and fiber connections, which are scheduled for the coming weeks to have a fully functional space, but it is up and running at the moment, and it was also in use for last week's football game as well for coaching and filming. And he has his participation numbers here, which you can see or read at your perusal. The numbers all look pretty healthy, with football just hitting 40 this year, and pretty much everything else either on par with recent years. A little dip in a cheerleading number, it appears, but for the most part, on par with the last couple of years. And he, once again, has listed the openings for our various coaching positions, and it appears I'm sitting next to the middle school boys soccer coach, recent hire, as well as field hockey coach Mrs. McLeod and Mrs. Swanson. Look like they've taken over that team. So.
Well, thank you to them for the last minute
Yes.
hires that,
Absolutely.
in
Thank you,
many
Patrick.
ways, a great contribution.
Mhm.
So appreciate it.
Absolutely. Questions on Brian's athletics report?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, and I'm not trying to pick on bass fishing, but
I have an answer. I can give you a
is
little bit
for-
more from the Booster Club. I can give a little bit of information.
Is
Yeah.
there a threshold at which point we move something from is there a threshold where we move something from being a sport to being a club?
So I've had the conversation with Brian, and I think since I've had the conversation when there was a Booster Club meeting where they did discuss this
Well,
possibility.
I just wanted the one piece of information I got. I didn't mention anything at the Booster Club meeting, because when I'm at the Booster Club meeting, I'm a booster, I'm not a, but I did find out that only, there's something about only two of each of a team can actually compete in the tournaments, which is why it's generally a small team, but that was what a mom told me, so I don't know if that's official information, but,
Like your top two are the ones who
your
actually.
top two can in the main tournament, and they don't do a lot. But a really good question about whether or not they should be an NHIAA sport or a club, and if they can be a club, can they still
compete in the state
participate in
tournament?
that state tournament?
Yep.
So
That's where I left it with Brian. That was
Okay.
where we left it. If it was something that we wanted to fund through a club, if they were going to be allowed to compete at the NHIAA state meet, which to me would be the question to ask.
right, and a club would allow them to raise and fundraise in a different way than as a team, I think.
And we've had
so.
different models of that. When football first came on, it was funded as a club before it was taken over as a varsity sport, NHIAA sport.
It might also allow people to participate who are not ready to commit to the rigors of a structured team environment
Yeah.
where they have to be at a certain number of things. I'm just thinking, it's a nice activity and all that, but it stands out as a lightning rod.
It does. I agree.
Thank you.
Your principal's report now?
Yep. So like Patrick, we opened with an orientation day for our freshmen, which was great, and welcome back all of our upperclassmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors the day after. Had a successful opening with our students. We had an open house last Thursday, first one in 3 years in person. It was great having the community members, family members, parents back into the building, allowing them to once again walk our halls, meet our teachers in person. They ran through their student schedule, as Patrick described, will be the setup down here. It was really an overall successful event. We have our PSAT testing for all juniors, as well as some select sophomores who were registered last year, coming up in October 12th. On that note, we were recently notified that we have 2 National Merit Scholarship semi-finalists, Mr. Noah Moyer and Mr. Will Longton. Were both named as semi-finalists. And we also had a handful of students who have yet to be notified, at least by the school. I don't know if they received notification. I just got it in the mail yesterday. Students who have received commendation for their performance on the PSATs last year as juniors. So we'll notify the students before we make that announcement publicly, but we again had several students honored for their performance on the PSAT test last year. Our school counseling department has been busy. They hosted a financial aid night last week, and actually I believe in this moment they are hosting a senior college night for seniors and parents looking to prepare for what's to come next year, and that's via Zoom. Like I mentioned earlier, we have homecoming weekend coming up, and that will include, for the first time in a few years, a homecoming dance. And we also have our National Honor Society induction ceremony that is tentatively scheduled for the 27th of October for the induction ceremony. So those applications are coming in as we speak. I also wanted to mention that on Friday, HBHS will be celebrating Constitution Day in all of our social studies classes. This annual event, our social studies classes will cover being active citizens, highlighting the strength of Constitution, and set rules we as Americans live by. While all students take part in the celebration of Constitution Day in our required civics class, it's where all students focus on the key constitutional principles found in the Declaration, the U.S. Constitution, and the amendments. And quite possibly the culmination of all this education is the experience that our students get in the AP Gov class and taking part in the We the People competition later on the second semester. And I did want to put a plug in for our Homefront Club, which is back up and running for the first time since COVID. I met with that group the other day. Austin is a member. And we discussed the coordination of our annual Veterans Day Assembly, which will happen in November. And the club has been active discussing ideas in how different ways we can celebrate patriotism in our school and throughout the school year, and not just HBHS, but throughout the district. So looking forward to the ideas that come from that student group. So that's
Thank
it.
you so much, Tim. Just a comment, like walking around Old Hope Day, it's always great to see all the kids involved. I know there was a mention of the kids in the teams, but there's student council representation and clubs all the time, and not involved in Old Home Day anymore, but I did enjoy it as a participant, and I always love seeing the kids there. So, are there any questions on this report? Yes, Tom?
Tim, if you may recall, last year, the regional CTE call, they talked about there being potentially state funding available to help with transportation. Do you know if that ever came about, or if we have any access to it?
I don't. Like, are you talking state-funded grant?
No, supposedly, they said that a chunk of money had been allocated by the state for upcoming years to help with transportation. It was stated very generically, and I'm just wondering
Isn't
whether,
that fall coming up again in October?
whether that came to fruition, and if so, where we're seeing a lot of issues about filling positions related to pay scale and things like that, if the state is contributing to it, I'm just wondering if it might allow us to do anything that would help us fill those positions.
I have not seen the date for the upcoming meeting, but that's definitely something that if
It's in
there is.
October, I can't
yeah.
remember it.
It's
like-
been circulated?
Yeah.
Could you pass that
Yeah,
out?
sure. Let me make a note.
I have a superintendent's meeting, a regional one, on Friday, so I will ask the
Yeah.
questions because our CTE superintendents will be there as well.
That'd be cool.
Yep.
So I'll send the CTE email along to the board and to you. I assumed you were on it. I'm sorry. I thought you were on it too.
There's
Yeah.
been a little bit of collapse
Okay, well, I don't know, so.
in
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Tim? Just extend our congratulations to Noah and Will.
Yes, absolutely.
Congratulations, and there's more to come, so.
Yeah, so there's also students who perform so well that they're being recognized.
The
Yeah, commended
So
students.
they didn't announce everything at the same time.
Yeah,
Weird.
and last year they did, and I had it all
Right.
together. And when I put this forward, I
Didn't
was
realize
under the
more
impression
than-
that maybe we
Right.
didn't have any this year, and then I received their names yesterday, and we haven't notified them yet. So
Right,
I want to do
that's
that
what-
first.
That makes sense. Are there any other comments, questions from anyone? Okay, moving on to Austin and Gracie, if you would like to share some things that are going on with the school from the students' perspective, that'd be great.
Yeah, so currently our student council, we just finished up with our old homestay fundraisers for each class. I believe the freshmen were very successful with their 50-50 raffle. I know the seniors, we had an absolute fun time dunking our donkeys, one of them being Mr. Bizone, and also the cellar. Now we're in this ending steps between homecoming, finalizing what dress-up days we wanted leading up to add some more school spirit, along with the Halloween assembly that the juniors run. They're in their final days and finalizing that, which we provided some structure so they can base off of previous years. Currently, right after we meet tomorrow, so we'll start talking about our Spirit Week that we wanted to start deconstructing and really reconstructing to get more people in the school to participate, because we've noticed recently the skits and the dances haven't been, they're not attracting the numbers they used to, so we're thinking of more like game-oriented, because for the newer generations, a lot of sports seem to be attracting, especially when we did our mental health day. A lot of the sports, like the teacher versus student, like softball game, I know a lot of people showed up to that.
Okay. Is there anything else? Terrific. It sounds like you have a lot of planning to do. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Glad
much.
you're here.
Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay, but, you probably have homework or things in life. No.
We banned that.
We banned homework. No, we did, unfortunately for you. Okay. Thanks so much. All right. Okay. Moving on from principal and athletics report, we'll open into discussion. The first portion of discussion is the renovation and facilities update. Just leave.
Just for a minute.
Okay, well then, we'll take a slight,
He thought you meant him and the students.
okay, well, in a second, we'll take a quick.
Bye, guys. Thank you
Bye,
again
thank
very
you.
much.
So, pass the candy, we're in a holding pattern.
I'm good, no, thank you. I just want candy now.
I do too.
Pass that candy is going today, like, we must have had.
Some of us didn't eat dinner, yeah,
I'm not as cultured, yes, no, they're
yeah.
not.
Great, thank you.
So in the discussion, we'll have the renovation and facilities update, the MOU conversation, DC. I think we might want to wait for Andy to do that. Do you want to skip to the DC trip now? Yeah, I think so, okay. So would we all be comfortable if we flip to the DC trip so that Patrick is back? Oh, he's back, never mind, Andy, we're gonna start with you.
Excellent, the facilities?
You have some candy.
Okay.
Facilities and renovation, yes,
Okay.
that's where we are.
In your board packet, I went from, last month, we used the diagrams
Yeah.
and kind of pointed everything out, to this month, putting it down in more of what needs to happen at different places. And I did that for a couple purposes. One is because right now, we're in the midst of potentially applying for building aid and may be able to secure some funds. I don't know what will happen, but we're in the running. But secondly, is this provides us kind of the roadmap for the foreseeable future. And what we'll do is, as you know, Kelly, a number of years back, created a formula that prioritizes items. It provides a numerical item, and that's how things get ranked in the budget. Lance has taken over that. So unless something went wrong with something breaking unexpectedly, you kind of have everything in front of you that we'll be looking at probably for the next 5 to 10 years. What we're going to vote on later, and why I wanted to provide you that list, is I'd like the board to consider taking an official position regarding applying for the building aid. We've done the application. What we're looking for is basically something that says to the people at the state that this board is committed to going through the process. That doesn't mean this board is committed to undertaking the dollar amount, because that's still the voters' warrant article to approve. And it doesn't mean that the board can't amend the project to a lower number than we submitted for. It means that only 30% of whatever project we ultimately submit would be funded. But the state's just looking, with everything going on, to basically, this is a chance for a district to say, are you still interested? The other thing it does is it is really a 2-year commitment, meaning that if we said yes, and we put it on our warrant article, and it passed or failed, all right, we wouldn't lose our spot from this year. So everybody that filed next year would be below us on the reapplication process. All right? Does that make sense to everybody? But really, this has been something that we started when I arrived, passed over to Kelly, and I think it's been very helpful, and why we've been able to move forward with our projects and get voter support. Because the other piece is, if we were, like last year, we had a budget surplus, and all the items are already known to us. So we're not asking for something that doesn't need to be done if we have a surplus. It's a matter of, does the board want to support that project, or does the board want to return that money to the taxpayers? But it just gives us an opportunity where we have provided this to all our residents. We do the same thing in Hollis, we do the same thing in Brookline, and then we try to also balance the knowledge that it's really one taxpayer, we're asking for money twice, one in Hollis and one in Brookline. So there's nothing different on the list that I provided you tonight that wasn't on the list the other night. It just really goes into more detail around mechanical. Tom had asked about solar, that is included in this list. I think the co-op is has a significant potential to have cost savings via the solar. In terms of, we have plenty of property, we have very large roofs, and we could do a lot of our electrical through solar in the future. To that end, I also want to switch gears and go over to the existing project that we're completing, but I'll stop here for a moment, take any questions you might have on the list that was in your packet and what we're going to consider when we vote tonight, just basically saying that we're in support of this and the district moving forward, and then it just becomes part of our normal procedure of creating a warrant, talking about the warrant, deciding the number for the warrant, eventually moving that through Budget Committee, School Board, and then ultimately the voters.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I have a couple questions. So you've put in for two things, one for the middle school and one for the high school.
Correct.
So does this in any way commit us, so let's say both of those get approved, let's just say by some miracle, both of those get approved. We're not committing to putting both of those on the warrant?
No,
No.
no.
So if we got both of them, could we put one on the warrant and then wait a year, or do they both have to go through this year?
Well, you would have options that I would bring back to you, because you may decide, let's say that we were notified that we were one of the projects going to be approved. We may decide to then go for one warrant, reprioritizing the two different buildings into one overall project, which would give us a dollar amount. Basically, what the state is doing is committing to 30% of your dollar amount if your vote is past that.
So we still have a lot of leeway if we approve this recommendation tonight.
You can prove this tonight and say in October that you don't want to go forward.
When, did they say when the notifications are going to be
Uh,
made for approval?
They are finishing up what I'll call site visits. They have a few more to go, and they have a formula that they're using that will then rank the projects. So we may find that we don't even make the first round of ranking. And there are some big projects going on in the state. I'll give you an example. I believe that Concord is looking to build a new middle school. Okay, and that project, my guess, is going to be somewhere between $70 and $100 million. So
Do you know when
it's,
the first round notifications will be made, is my question?
I don't have a firm date, but
I think it's before the end of the calendar year.
Okay, the reason I was asking is you said in October you may say you don't want to go forward. I assumed that we would not have to make that decision before we know about the grant status.
you don't have to make that decision. But let's say, because of other things we're attempting to do that are gonna put strain on a budget, you just feel that this is too much to ask for,
Okay.
you may decide that our priority is
Decide that that's-
staffing.
Conversely, will we have information available to us when we're trying to finalize our budget, you think?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because the architect has been involved with us, and so if we were to change or prioritize differently,
No, I'm talking about the awarding of the grant.
yep,
If we'll know, you said by the end of the year, is that soon enough for us to make a decision about, when do we have to have
January.
the stuff for the
It
warrant
sounds like
article?
it's a quick turnaround.
But we normally have the hearing.
Public hearing February.
is February,
What's the one we have in December?
the SAU.
right.
Okay.
So we will have time, and we
Not
will
much, though.
No, not much, but I would say it's no different a schedule than most years when we're doing a bond, because we started discussing this back in, actually last year, last March, when we had to put the first application in. It's gone from this wish to just, we qualified to get a site visit. The site visit will give us a ranking, and it might be over then. The 17 projects might come back and we could be ranked number 17. But it was just one of these opportunities where, with 30% potential, to have not put in would have been a mistake.
What does LULA stand for?
Lulu is a type of elevator. We have one in the gym here
Oh,
that does the stage.
Okay, so it's not an enclosed thing,
No,
it's,
It can be enclosed,
oh,
because the new one,
that's one also?
yeah, the new one in Brookline's gonna be a Lulu. This one here is a Lulu. I know, Lula. Lulu.
Looks like several of the things on here have to be addressed, grant or no grant, because of code violations.
Right.
So we're likely going to be digging deep into this independent of the grant.
Well, this will go on our schedule, like Kelly always does, and that's what I mean by priority.
But in code violations,
But it's only, like to remove the corridor grate door, okay? There are things that are not to code if we do work, but are grandfathered in if we do
okay.
nothing.
okay.
So some of the code pieces you see, if we're going
Only
to
if you
do
open
a section.
Pandora's box.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions for Andy on that?
Just switching over to our present renovation, go ahead.
The thing I was going to say is, some of these things would be topics, if we were just doing them on our own, and the grant wasn't, we would likely be seeking a high level of public input.
we have time for that.
Do we need to start that process while we're waiting? Because
I believe we need to start it like we would, take the state out of the picture. We need to do the same framework we would start doing to pass any potential bond. The only difference is voters would now come with the potential, and we would know by then if 30% of it was going to be funded by the state.
Thank you.
Okay.
Um,
Current renovation? Is that
Switching
for-
gears, the current renovation projects are, I'm going to say, on schedule. We replaced the 3 major ventilation units. Those are all done. The others were scheduled to be coming in over the Christmas break. We are going to be bringing the project in under budget. And what I'm recommending, and hopefully the board has no problem with this, as we move forward, we're scheduled to do LED lights. Our 3 largest users of lights location is the high school cafeteria, the high school gymnasium, and the high school library. All 3 of those can be completed when we do the work on the last unit ventilators on the roof over the holiday. So it's something we're planning to do anyways. With the cost of where electricity is going to go, would take our 3 largest areas and make them much more energy efficient if the board supports that. The money is there. The company has already quoted us a price that will allow us to do that, which will allow us to use the intent of the bond, which was to do the renovations around ventilation and high school issues.
So when you say the money is there, you mean the under-budget surplus?
Yes.
Would cover that cost?
Correct.
Can you tell me approximately the order of magnitude?
It'll be somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000.
And do you need a motion and approval, or are you just okay with?
I'm okay as long as, if the board, I mean,
We've got it under deliberation to see what action would it be appropriate to.
Do you want an action
You want
item,
that?
like, to approve it, or do you?
we can absolutely do an action item. I know auditors would always love an action item, but the minutes would reflect that the board has
Do
been
we have to go
informed.
out for separate bid on the lighting?
We typically would not, and the reason why in this case is specifically that the firm is there. So, I mean, having done the lights at Hollis Primary, Hollis Upper, and a section in Brookline, having the gentleman on site is why it's going to come in that $60,000 and $80,000 cost as opposed to a larger one. I can get comparisons, but
I'm just saying, if we're gonna do it, and we're not going to go out to bid, then I would like to see a letter put into the record explaining why,
Okay, yep,
just because a couple of years from now,
yep.
somebody may question.
No, I can absolutely do that, and I can have that done by EEI, who's the vendor on this project.
Okay, great.
Do we have to take action on it?
Well, I just put it under
We can do
deliberations, I
deliberations.
guess,
We can
but
go.
you're gonna have to come up with what the motion is, okay? So, it's your job, okay? Assigned it to you. It's too much thinking for me, I can't run the meeting.
I can write the motion.
Oh, Andy's gonna write the motion, who does? All right, next is the, update on the MOU. Oh, are you busy
Yep,
writing?
nope.
Do you wanna write first?
No, I can do the MOU.
You know, we'll just take a couple minutes, let you write, and then we'll
Yeah.
just do it later.
In your board packet, you have a copy of the MOU with the Hollis Police Department. What the chief and I have been doing since I've been here is we meet every August and go over it and make sure there are no areas we'd like to change. So for the vast majority of this, it is absolutely everything we've been doing. I would like to point out the one section, which is under equipment, and it's under equipment, which is L, and it's number 6. We are, at the request of the police department and via the state emergency management, working with our police department, one of the critical elements in an emergency is access to the building. In order to facilitate that, we work off a key fob system, and we will be using or providing the Hollis Police Department with key fobs. This will give them 24/7 access to immediately get them into the building. An officer's weapon is one of the most looked after and inspected and
Protected.
reviewed and protected
Yeah.
on a regular basis. So every single, I believe it's monthly, Joe said to me, an officer's weapon is gone over, reviewed, and all of that. In all the reading I have done, everything talks about immediate access being the critical element. So this allows the officer to have the fob and gives them the quickest access into our buildings possible. It also assists them in an after-school or a weekend situation. Just so people at home understand, I'm in regular communication with the Hollis Police Chief and the Brookline Chief. We are on speed dial on our phones and things of that nature. We have a great relationship with the Hollis Dispatch and the Brookline Fire and Ambulance, and they have assisted us through a number of years now of all our security grants and our recommendations. And I can assure you, in my humble opinion, I think Joe and Bill, respective chiefs, are two individuals that I trust and understand how much they have done around safety and security. So that is the only piece. We typically don't vote on this. It's something that I bring just to make the board aware that I'm signing on behalf of the district. And it's something you'll see again about this time next year, even if there's no changes. You know, I think it's just always good. It allows any citizen out there to access it. We do post it on our website. And I know some people get concerned about that, but at the same time, law enforcement looks at that as a deterrent, because when people are looking for targets, they a lot of times are looking for what I would refer to as a soft target. And knowing that you're constantly reviewing safety and security, working closely with your police department, your fire department, and all those, is a deterrent. For those of the community that might not know, during our distribution of Chromebooks, we had the whole Hollis Police Department here for active shooter training. They regularly utilize our building. They're required to take regular tours around our building, so it's not the first time they've been in there in an emergency situation. And we have probably as good a SRO or SROs now in Hollis and at the co-op that I've met. We just actually met today. Rick Bergeron joined us in our leadership meeting, and we called into the chair of the Safety and Security for Homeland Security for the state, just to talk about our emergency operating plan that we submit every year. Because in that plan, we're starting to transition from just what had traditionally been a lockdown mode, which means that, you know, we just lock down and we take actions, to avoid, defend, and deny, okay? And again, this is going to be a year-long transition. One of the key components is our SRO went off and has become a certified trainer. So he will begin to deliver those trainings to all our staff over the next year. And it will really assist our faculty in understanding different situations that they could face. We hope that they never do, but it's one of these things where by doing the trainings, you build habits so that you don't necessarily, hesitate. You just react and go through what you've been trained. So that's the only addition to the MOU. I'd like to publicly thank both chiefs for our outstanding relationship, and they're always there, and not just for this type of thing. We've a couple of years back, and he's still with us, our former police chief, Jay Sartell, is our baseball coach. We've had a number of officers who have coached and been a part of different things. So we do have just a wonderful relationship with both communities. And I'd be happy to take any questions on the MOU.
Just one, Andy, I'm curious, in the same way that you said that they're gonna be checking pistols monthly, that that's something they normally do, is there a method in place to actually check that the fobs keep working?
Yes. we will coordinate a plan with Joe. We have labeled each of the fobs, has a number, so we know who has access. We control all the fobs from the SAU, so we can turn a fob on or off over the weekend. That all goes through Facilities and Lance. And what Joe will ask his officers to do, he likes them to be in the building, so we're going to ask them to use their fob to fob in and out once in a while, to always maintain that that is working.
Right,
Yep.
yeah, I didn't know if there was like, if you saw an alert if a fob wasn't working, or
Right.
if a light goes off, or what.
We don't get that type of alert, but at the same time, this is my 9th year, and I'm on my second fob, so it's a pretty stable system.
That's good.
Yeah.
It would be awful if they got to the door and it
Yeah,
didn't work.
right. And each of them, I can tell you, has been tried, and our neighboring town will be adopting the same thing, and those offices will have similar fobs in both districts, like Gina and mine, which is basically universal access.
Any other questions on the MOU? Mr. Henry?
Well, just a question on the functioning of the SRO. Have we ever had a circumstance where the principal and the police officer were in any form of disagreement in the middle of a disciplinary situation? Has that ever occurred, or do the principals have the control, I presume they have, inside their building in all discipline situations? I'm looking for how the relationship works.
It's a highly functioning relationship. I think, like Andy said before, we have one of the best. I've been fortunate enough to work with Rick for several years. I've experienced working with other SROs as well. Rick is second to none. If nothing else, he's a resource in essence for challenging situations. He provides support in sometimes that issues that might not rise to the level of involving the police, but he'll provide
So there's
guidance.
never been any friction? That's all I wanted
I've
to
never
know.
had any friction, no, I can't say that.
No, and in my time, there hasn't been this clearly defined. I'd say 99 out of 100 times, he's not going to step in unless we ask him
Yeah,
to step in.
Yeah.
Yep.
that's the way it was designed. I was on the board when we started the SRO, and I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works, and just, again, having a fabulous chief, knowing that everybody's career at some point, we move on.
Yeah.
We have another officer already in training who is filling in at the Hollis schools while one of the other officers is out on leave. So Joe has done a great job of making sure that we're ready to backfill positions, and that officers learn what it's like to be with kids, because it's a different environment.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Any other questions on the MOU? All right, moving on to the Washington DC 8th grade trip, spring of 2023. I've noticed this isn't a deliberative item, so this is a pre-approved trip that we've approved in the past. And
This is a trip that we've always done. We felt it was important to bring it back because of the hiatus from COVID, and just so that everybody was hearing the price tag on what it's become now. But this is something that we absolutely would like to return to. We will, as always, do everything we can to make sure that any family who wants to go is able to afford the trip. But it was just more looking at the expense, because I think a number of years back, at one point in the budget, we had some scholarship money that was put into the budget for Washington, that I think as time went on and different things occurred, is not necessarily there. So that would be something for FY '24 we might want to look at. And I'll turn it over to
Mr. West?
So there have been some updates since the last information that was sent out in the board packet, so I apologize for that, but over the summer, we were notified by Fox Tours, who has traditionally been the company that we've worked with
I have two.
to do our Washington DC trip. Unfortunately, Fox Tours is going out of business in December, and they notified us at the end of July. So we quickly began working with other companies, looking at other companies, and shout out to Jake Richard, 8th grade math teacher, who found this company through Hudson School District, and they used last year. And they had a much more reasonable price than the several others that we looked at. Even though this is a pretty significant increase from a few years ago, with inflation and a lot of other things, there is a price increase, which, yeah, we can talk about. So you just want me to go through this form, or just want to fire questions away?
We've already
I
read
think
through
there's
it,
any
so I think
questions.
it's good. I think we,
I do want to just point out that that price right there, so it was subject to change, and one of the things that wasn't on the original price was the Potomac River Cruise. That is, I think, something that 8th grade students really do enjoy. So the price did increase $75 per line on that. That is something that we can certainly do away with, but
Is that above the 1020?
yes.
So it goes to 1095?
or is it,
What is the 1020 included?
No, it's 1070 now, sorry. 1070 would be that first original price break. And then I think the next one would be.
Well, I'm looking at the form where you have the 1020, which was what? Okay, so the information in the handout is accurate. It doesn't match
what
this.
changes here? What's the different, what's on this that's
Oh,
different from the
I see.
packet?
What's on this, in the packet that I provided was the old itinerary that they provided us, which did not include the river cruise.
Okay,
Since, just a couple days ago, this company has provided us an updated cost, including that river cruise.
so this itinerary, but you didn't change the price?
I did, it's the same copy. I was
Okay.
just handing out copies of the
Okay.
original.
Okay,
For you guys to make notes on if you wanted to.
Okay, thank you.
so you're still basing it on the 45 paying passengers and 4 free chaperones, which was 1020, but now the price would be 1070.
Correct.
Okay.
For that, yes, and depending on how many students go or don't go, it would increase the price.
Okay.
My hope, I think our all hope is that all students are gonna go, but, there is that concern that families might not be able to afford, but, yeah. The other thing that has changed on here is the meeting next week would be September 28th, not the 27th, just to give families a little more time. I was gonna send something out to families, tonight, if we get approval for this, just to give them an extra couple days to prepare for that parent meeting.
So I don't think the board takes a vote because it's not on deliberations, and it is a trip that we've approved in the past. And it's just what's the word? Just bringing it back. So, but we definitely, I'm sure we'll have some questions and some comments and some, I mean, obviously the price is a concern. It's a lot, and if there's no scholarship money, I just wonder how we are going to let families know and that they can reach out, and then is there a small amount of private donations that have already been made? And in the past, I know there's been a place for private donations to be made. I mean, that communication is important, so.
Yeah. We've already had a few community members reach out wanting to donate money. And I believe that's through an account that we have, that we would then figure out if that would go to one family or divvy that up amongst other families. But the communication is really important, how we kind of relay that message.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Tom, you want to ask it to everyone?
Should HB Elevate be involved at all in that process where we have a formal fundraising mechanism?
We could absolutely do that, because we've always been looking for opportunities for them to expand
Yeah.
into other areas.
And they've also, they've been asking us for areas,
All right.
so.
I will reach out to their board chair and get their
It's
response.
still the same person?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I do have a question when it's appropriate.
Sure, okay, go ahead, questions?
Yeah, just,
Beth
oh,
first.
yeah, just, to understand the price change, I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand that. So if they include that dinner cruise, if all students go, you're saying it's the one price, but if not all students go, that's gonna change the price?
Yeah, so if you look at the original itinerary that was submitted, there's 4 breakdowns. I think it's 50 students per bus, 45 per
Gotcha,
student, 45
okay.
per bus, and 40 per bus, so depending on how many students we have, that price could change.
And when do students need to commit by? Because parents need to know the bottom line, like, of
So
what
they
the
can
price.
commit at any point, or if come December, they wanna join, they certainly can. Through this company, they take all the payments themselves.
Okay.
And payment plans can be set up, either monthly payment plans, or parents can submit lump sum payments and kind of set up their own payment plan for what works for them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember that price breakdown of the numbers before, maybe I just wasn't part of that, but
Well,
that's the only thing that's confusing to me is,
Yeah, it's always been a sliding scale depending on
a
how many
little bit,
people we
right.
get to
Okay.
commit to it.
okay.
But you don't, that doesn't
But you can't-
necessarily, like, when you communicate to the families, you're gonna tell them a price, right? Not the
That's what I'm-
sliding scale.
that's what I'm
So
asking,
The price
yeah.
you're gonna tell them is this 1070, right? Is that the,
Yes.
Okay.
that's the price you're gonna, so there's no like,
But-
but if we get more people, it's gonna go down to 1050.
Or
like,
we
That's
don't
what-
get
That's what
enough.
they've done in the past.
Have they?
Yeah.
Have they
I-
done that in the past?
Yeah, because your last payment,
Oh, your final
It's
payment gets adjusted,
adjustable.
okay, okay.
That's what it, okay, all right.
Are you saying that whether or not someone, are you going to leave certain of these activities as truly optional? I mean, I would prefer that all kids get the same experience and it's not a have and have-nots decision.
Yeah, so once we developed the itinerary, and that was something
It'll either
that we
be on it or it won't.
Yes.
Right, so everybody
Yeah.
does everything,
Okay.
unless they're,
The itinerary is the same for every student that we have. We're just kind of, originally, we didn't think we were gonna do the Potomac River cruise, because I guess in the past, when we've done it, there have been multiple schools that have gone, and there have been some concerns on that trip, but this company just notified us that there's a cruise available for just our school.
Oh, cool.
Which could prevent some
yeah, that was it.
issues.
Cross-contamination.
Right.
Yep.
Well, you know, it has been an issue in the past to have more than one school
Correct.
trapped on a boat together, so.
So we were notified that there is.
As a
So we just
chaperone
trap all our
on those, I concur with that.
So because of that option, we felt it was like
Okay.
really good.
And that includes it, so that's where it becomes, it's like additional, there's also a dinner with that as well.
Dinner and DJ, and I can send you all the
No, it's
updated
fine.
itinerary.
Well, my recollection is that not the very last trip, because I think it got adjusted for some things, but some of the past trips,
I think my students
I
on the last
attended-
trip.
I
they did-
attended the
they
very
did
last
some-
trip,
They
yeah.
did something different with the scheduling about when they left, which
So-
worked out to be really,
So
I bet they
there was, in 27, the class of 2017 got stuck in snow and they stopped in Philadelphia, wasn't that? And so they stopped in Philadelphia because of a snow situation. And then subsequent years, that's what they did. They drove, Fox Stores took them to Philly on the way down to break up the drive. This doesn't include that, but this is a new touring company, so this isn't what they do. So, but yeah, that was a nice little break that the kids got, but they're not doing that this time, because a different tour company, and I think it's fine. This goes back to all the classes before that tolerated the long drive.
and then what, can you remind me what will happen for the students who do not go?
There is, I know in the past that those students did stay back and do day tours or day trips, which we would certainly look into building it again. Local museums, maybe Massachusetts. I
They
think
do
Local
vertical dreams,
veterans,
they do
yeah.
vertical dreams, I
Yeah.
think.
Local veterans
And-
also
and some-
attended with them to tie some of the same curriculum pieces, if I remember. I mean, I went on the tour, or I went on the trip to DC, but other veterans that were here accompanied students to try to tie in some of the same experiences in a different way.
Okay, thank you.
Who will be watching the shop when you and Ellie are?
I was wondering that too.
I anticipate, I'll be
Mr.
going on this
Guzman.
trip, and Ally's probably gonna stay back.
Oh, okay.
Her
She's
name's
here,
on the
that's
list.
Her
all.
name is on the list, we've talked about it since, and I think some things have changed since that original conversation, and somebody's gonna have to stay back and
Okay.
man the fort.
Pulling rank, huh?
I don't know, I
I think-
think maybe.
I think she's the lucky one. I'll tell you about
She-
that later.
She loves the trip, I think she's prefer to stay this one back for a few different reasons.
I mean, it is awesome to travel with eighth graders and sleep in hotel rooms and be awake in hotel rooms.
And
Yeah,
walk
it's
30,000
great.
steps a day.
Plus one back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're selling it to them. It's great.
Oh, I've done this trip many times.
You see how Tim is very quiet?
I'll come down to the middle
He
school.
did get invited, he did get invited.
Well,
He's busy, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, are there any other questions on the actual trip?
The itinerary seems pretty much the same as it has been
Yeah.
historically.
Yeah, the White House.
I'm excited to see it come back. I think it's a great opportunity for our kids. I think I know it's highly controlled, but they still feel like they get a little bit of independence. And, I just know that historically kids have really looked forward
Yeah.
to the eighth grade trip. And I got one that missed it last year, so
Yeah.
I'm excited for kids to come.
I am too. I am a little concerned about that price because it's 4 digits and that's concerning and it's a big jump. So I just hope we can figure out ways to make sure that no one is left behind who, right, who really wants to go. I do, however, know that there are students who truly don't want to go and families who don't want their kids to go, and that's fine, and we have great opportunities for them too. So, but hopefully we can find those students who want to go and figure out ways to help them. And it would be great to get HB Elevates involved in that.
And one of the things, I don't know if it's possible, and it might make it easier, if HB Elevates could get involved and essentially subsidize the trip to lower the cost of the trip, and then we could encourage parents who feel that they could afford more to donate to
that. Right.
to the
Yep.
funding.
Yep.
And then the other thing to talk about, maybe not tonight, but is to consider, after working with HB Elevates and seeing how that goes, but also consider putting something in the budget, a line in the budget again for somehow subsidizing this trip. Because if we all, as the board, feel like this is a educational opportunity, an important opportunity for our students, then there should be a little bit of money in the budget to just cut this to be at least under 4 digits would be lovely.
I did toss in this updated packet, just some curriculum connections that eighth grade social studies teachers did.
Well, yeah.
provide.
And if we are doing subsidization on any level, it would be important to carry that over for the activities for the kids who don't go.
Yes.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yes,
So
yes.
whatever percentage we subsidize this, we can subsidize that.
Yep,
Makes sense.
okay.
Okay, any other questions on the DC trip? Okay, at this point, we're gonna move to deliberation. Oh, no, we have one more comment and one more thing that we added, which is, something about board communications. Krista, do you wanna talk about this?
Yeah. So, we've talked a lot about how we communicate with the public, and we feel like it's difficult on Facebook. And not necessarily communicate, but get our information out. And minutes are nice, but it's pretty tough to read through 10 to 20 pages of minutes, and they're pretty dry. And I was just thinking a summary would be nice, and I know, I've been talking to Julie Rowland from the Rotary, who runs the online newspaper. And she gets the principal's reports, which is appreciated, and she puts it in there. But really, it's Julie and Peter Webb running that newspaper, and it's just impossible for them to attend everybody's meeting and try to write a summary. So, I was wondering what the thought would be for members, us, the school board, writing a quick summary on what happens, what we talk about in the discussion, just a quick discussion, nothing leaning, not trying to sell anything, not spinning anything, but just saying it in a way that explains it in our deliberations, when we talk about a policy, what changes we made, why we put that in place, what we did. And then certainly a link to the minutes and to anything like that. I don't know how we feel about that. I wanted to see a sense of the board if we think that's something that we feel is important, if we want to do it, or if we feel that would be out of our realm. That's not something we should be doing. If people want to find out information, they can find it out. So I just kind of wanted to get a sense of the board and what they think of it, and if we deem it appropriate to do.
I mean, I think there's a huge disconnect in information and people understanding things, so I find that valuable, but I do have concerns about it being written by board members, and for multiple reasons, but just because of the nature of it, but also just the time too. As much as I would love to help with another thing, I'm completely overextended. I can't do that, but I think it's really important to get information out there, and I think more summarized would be helpful and help people understand it, but I'm just not sure it should be coming from us directly. I don't know, that's just my initial thought, but, because it can be taken, you know, it can be taken, you know, as leaning one way or another, I don't know.
I know,
Yeah.
it's the difficult part about it.
Yeah.
I
I
just
mean,
feel
yeah.
like I feel so often we are letting, sometimes social media,
Mhm.
dictate the narrative.
Yep.
And most of the time, we don't respond to things that are completely untrue on there because there's no point and I don't want to get in a big
We generally don't respond on social media.
discussion.
Right.
Right.
Right, and even if there's not a summary, but if they wanna provide direct links to the minutes, direct
I
links
think
to the.
she's already
because-
doing that.
Is she? Okay.
I think she's
Yeah,
already
she
got
is doing
direct
that.
links.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I just don't know if people.
People are
and-
actually
and
utilizing
that,
it,
you know,
okay.
I just feel that there might be somebody who would look at 2 paragraphs of what happened. My concern is that I think people look at Facebook and there's a lot of negative stuff on there, and there's a lot of negative stuff about the schools. And I think, quite frankly, it's put there on purpose to degrade the reputation of the schools. And I feel like unfortunately people see that, and although they might not agree, they aren't necessarily gonna go to the next step of trying to see what we actually do, and so it kind of just sits in people's brains, and I just thought if we could give a concise summary of what we do, but I understand the concern about us writing it.
Kate, go ahead, you go first, yeah.
So I love it in theory. I worry about bandwidth, people, you know, sort of jumping on board to be able to write this every month. And then also I think that in the
The
same.
secretary would do it.
In the same way that people look at Facebook a certain way, somebody making a statement and then everything running off of that, some people might look at the board making a statement in a newspaper and sort of look at it the other way. Like, that somehow we are skewing things in a certain direction. But I wonder, what would be the chances of getting a journalism student somehow become a correspondent for their newspaper? And if that could be worked in, and have a high school student coming and writing, if it was like a round robin and every student had to do one, or there's more students than that, but I don't know if there's room there for that.
We can hold more meetings.
That sounds like a great idea.
That's really
what
I don't
he
know about
wants,
that.
another meeting on your
But they can
plate.
spread out, there's other board members.
We have candy.
I mean, ideally, it was, we've talked about this, I would love it if a reporter came to every meeting or to every other meeting and reported, because I do agree that just having the link to like the agenda and the minutes, it doesn't really draw people in when they're looking at an online paper, like, oh, let me click on this link, oh, wait, there are the minutes, like, there's a lot of stuff to read, and, so I don't think just providing the links is really gonna get people, that's where the information is, and that's the stuff people should really read, but something needs to draw them to it, so ideally a reporter and ideally a journalism student, I'm all for that, that would be great, but we can't tell the students like what to do, so.
Know if, is there a National Honor Society journalism student who maybe could combine the two and get some hours?
Right, there's,
I don't know, I'm just trying to be creative, and I think that high school students are absolutely capable of writing an unbiased, you know,
well,
summary.
and it could also
out of
be
topics.
in coordination with the CAVCRON, so that students would actually see that there's this thing called a school board that actually makes decisions about their, you know, lives.
If I could suggest that, I'll touch base with Mr. Gazone, And we'll kind of put some of these pieces together, because we also, at the SAU, added the compliance and communication. We haven't been able to do as much as we had hoped with communications yet, just because we're down staff at the SAU as well. But I think, I think that's a powerful piece for me, for students. And I think, like, I'm not even sure students realize they have 2 student reps who come to meetings, you know? And maybe we need our own newspaper to talk to those students who attend these meetings, or get them to feel comfortable reaching out to members of the board to discuss a topic, you know, and let them do journalism, you know? Because I think, you know, from an educational standpoint, that allows all of us to enhance somebody's passion. You know, if a young lady or a young gentleman called and said, I'm doing a story for the school newspaper, I'd like to get your thoughts on this and that, I think that could be very powerful. So Tim and I will give some sort of report back in October to allow us maybe to go into the journalism class, share that, talk to Julie outside of this conversation about more ways to incorporate the Rotary, because I think what they're trying to do is very valuable, since we no longer have a local newspaper.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a tremendous job.
I think Tom has a comment, and I don't know if, I feel like maybe somebody over there has one, so go ahead.
I think you're looking at 2 different things. One is a question of just reporting the facts of what was discussed and the content of it, and getting people to be engaged. And towards that end, the way that we do it in the business community is essentially, you would take the minutes, and for each section, essentially create a headline with a hyperlink. So it says, the board discussed a policy on, or created a memorandum of understanding with their SRO, or the board had discussed a policy on personal use devices. So essentially, you would have a very short thing that just had a summary statement of what it was, and a deep link to that section of the minutes. So someone could look at that and see if there are any topics that grab their attention, and then get directly to it. The other side of it, which I share your sentiments, Krista, is that there is, I think, a misrepresentation of the facts of what we do and the foundation for it. That's a different kind of content, and I think the challenge there is that for any individual one of us to attempt to explain that is not appropriate and not fair to the board as a whole, unless it was submitted to the board the way minutes are for approval and editing. And even to the point of having a reporter come in and interview an individual board member, it's a slippery slope. Tom, maybe you want to weigh in on that.
You know, we can't go down that road. There's only one person that speaks, the board speaks for itself, and the chair is the only person that can speak for the board. I can't say a word in that, nor can any of us. And at least that's always been the rule that I've been
No,
aware
that
of.
is the policy, you're right. So,
So in summary, I would be very supportive of making the minutes more accessible by something along the lines of an online index. So if they're going to put the minutes in, just go through and take the sections and create one-line lead-ins of what the content might be and a way to get into it. But at this point, I'm concerned about any board activity to editorialize.
Oh, absolutely. This is a very agreeable board, but believe me, there are many boards, many times when this board has had all sorts of political opinions going.
Yeah, and the intent was not to make it political, and it wasn't to editorialize, it was to truly summarize. It was just to get information out to people.
The other question I have
More people.
is the readership of of this at all overlapping with the people who are in social media, do you think?
That's what I was wondering. I don't know that you're gonna reach the same people that are complaining on Facebook or doing whatever on Facebook. They probably don't look at other paper.
Well, I'm not worried about people complaining on Facebook. I'm worried about people reading it and not feeling like there's an answer to it. I feel like sometimes things are said on Facebook, and because it's said, all of a sudden that's a fact.
And I think a few years ago, we would go in and I would type in like, I wouldn't correct people, but every once in a while I would respond on Facebook and say, here's the agenda, here's a link to the agenda, or check the agenda, or check the minutes. Because it's, when it's misinformation, or people don't know, or people would say, where can I find this out? But, I've become much less likely to put anything on Facebook, because it doesn't feel like there's, any safeguards, so. Plus, my account got hacked. 3 times, like, multiple times, and, so,
All right, it was a thought.
no, I think it's,
Oh,
I
it's a
think
great
the idea
thought.
of having a journalism student come and connect in that way would probably help get attention to the fact that we have these meetings, we have a live stream. There's ways to find out, and I think that might help. And it certainly would be a great opportunity for, you have no problem with journalism students coming.
No, if a student or anyone else has their own soapbox and they want to publicize or comment, they're certainly entitled to do that. I would be reluctant to say that that any individual board member, other than perhaps the chair, would be an appropriate spokesperson for an interview.
Right,
Okay.
got that. Okay, thank you for that feedback.
So you have a new job.
That would require me to talk to students. All right, so next is our deliberative items, right? Did I get
Yep.
everything that we
Yep.
moved around? Okay. So at this point, I'm gonna see what action the board will take regarding the superintendent's recommendation to move forward with applying for school building aid. The motion reads to support the recommendation of the superintendent to move forward with applying for school building aid for the co-op schools.
So moved.
Moved by Beth,
Second.
second by Kate. Are there any, we discussed this in discussion, but if there's any further comments or questions before I take a vote? Okay, all in favor? 7-0-0, motion carries. And then we just have the policies, we have nothing else, right? No, we
You
added
wanted
one
to add a
more,
deliberative item,
yeah.
so I need, I'm gonna do the lights
Go get-
first.
get the,
Do you have it written down for me?
Not yet.
You want me to write it down?
I'll do it.
We can do it after the vote.
Okay, how about you work on that while we
Yep.
do policy? Okay, so we're gonna move to policies and then we'll do that one last. Okay. So, the motion for the next one is, regarding policy BEDH. So we're gonna motion to amend policy BEDH by replacing 15 minutes with 30 minutes. We're gonna accept the first reading, waive subsequent readings, and adopt policy BEDH. Public participation at board meetings as amended. So can someone
So
move
moved.
that? Beth, we'll talk about it in a second. Second? Tom. So we really dug into this policy, I think like 5 months ago, last year. This was the public comment
last October,
policy.
yeah.
There's been a change in the law simply to change 15 minutes to 30, so that's what we did to this policy. And we did not, as a policy committee, feel like we needed to go through everything again, because we did everything in depth in, when is it now?
October of last year,
of
so
a
not,
year
it
ago.
was like 11 months.
So, we decided to put this one forward this way, because it's really just complying with the law. Are there any comments on that? So this is
I
adopt.
just want to point out, and I'm supportive of it, it doesn't say it's going to be at the beginning of the meeting. So 30 minutes is 30
Right,
minutes.
I think the law doesn't say it has to be in the
No, I
beginning,
agree.
right, so we did not put that in the
I want
beginning,
people
right.
to be aware of that so
Right.
that they don't think we have to do it.
Right, we generally do, but, okay. So all in favor? 7-0-0, motion carries. Okay, and then, this one's hidden, why don't I have?
Just so you know, in the agenda, it
Yeah.
was written as first reading and adopt.
Oh, well, that's, Well, we waived.
We were hopeful.
Do-
I know.
No, do we want,
We just did.
We motioned to waive.
We waived.
We waived.
oh, we did, I didn't hear, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I missed
sorry.
that.
I missed that. Okay. All right. I know, I can't find it in my outline. So is it motion to, is it second read? If you
It's
can help me.
second reading
Okay.
and
so-
not to adopt.
So I need a motion to.
Well, I mean, we weren't.
Are we
planning
just
to-
doing second read on this?
Yes,
Okay,
second read
So we just
only.
need a motion to accept, for second reading, policy JLC, JA, emergency plan for sports-related injuries and additional protocols for athletics participation. I need a
So
motion.
moved.
Motion by Beth, second by Tom. Beth, can you speak to this?
Yeah, we brought this last month, and as I explained last month, a vast majority of this language is directly out of RSA, and there's can't change it. But the one request, I believe, last month, we discussed with Tom, like we talked about the board and initially approving the plan, but you had expressed if there's any significant changes, substantive changes, that will come back to the board. So that was added at the second page, so under D, under the annual review. So it's the superintendent's responsibility to review it, but Tom had recommended, and I agree with that, if there's any big changes, little changes like we moved where an AED is kept, those kind of things don't need to come back to the board. But if there's some kind of significant change, that was requested by this board, so in policy, we added that single line, but other than that, there's been no changes.
Your word was just, you said just choose a word, and we chose substantive.
He did say choose a word,
You
so
said
we
choose
chose
a word, and
one.
we chose
Yeah.
substantive, because we got significant could be related to like
Yes.
a number of things, but so
Yeah.
substantive means, okay, great.
But you had raised a question that I think I had echoed, and you were gonna look into it, is you were concerned about the medical history question. I thought we were gonna get some
Yeah, well,
clarification
We
to
do
that.
have-
I mean,
clarification on that,
my clarification, like, this is actually straight from the law, so there's things that I would, if I was writing that, I would do this a little bit differently, but this is from the RSA,
So in the plan, I think the policy committee has, this is being developed by a committee, right, the plan. The policy committee discussed that we will be looking towards, or the committee will be looking at creating our own form, a medical form, that will be the requirement for participation. And that's a process that that the group that, is working on this needs to develop the form and communicate to families about the form, but that's not part of this policy.
No, so we
That's a
wouldn't be
part of
changing the
procedure.
language in the policy,
Right,
but
so-
to make sure that we're upholding the policy, we can.
The question
use
was-
procedure.
Does the wording of the policy allow you to pose a question in the form that someone can't answer because they haven't been tested?
That is really, this is the law.
No, but
No,
does this
so-
allow it?
Right, well, I think that it does, well, that's a fair question. Now, I understand your question better now, but I think the way in procedures, and I'm the one that's volunteered to help initiate a form, but, we would be asking questions if they have a known history. And that's how you get around it, because it's a known history. We're not screening all
Right,
patients.
okay,
I mean,
so
there's a
just
lot of
wondered
things.
that
So-
that's allowed, this does not mandate
Right.
that everyone gets screened
Right.
for these.
Right,
No, it's
no,
just the
and a
information.
lot of times, that's how we ask is, do you have a history or a known history? And that covers
Yeah,
it.
okay.
But those, like I said, we do, a lot of these we already ask for in any typical form, but some we do not. So the only way we really have come to a consensus on how we can make sure as a district that we're complying with this is to perhaps do our own form. So we're working on that now.
Are there any questions on this one? Any other ones? All those in favor? I actually didn't look. 7-0-0.
Try again. Krista was against it.
Motion carries, that
Krista's
was for
against
second
it.
reading. Okay. By the way, you guys are good, I think. The principals are good, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Where do
you
the
guys are
forms
welcome.
get
I mean, we're zooming,
In
we're almost done,
school
but
nurse
you're
I mean, they're
offices
good
and they're
and they
locked.
can leave.
Yes.
On all
You're
campuses,
good,
they're
and
locked.
you can leave. Okay, so final deliberative item. Do you have it?
Yep. This is to support the superintendent's recommendation to utilize the remaining Hollis Brookline High School renovation funds to install LED lighting in the gym, the cafeteria, and the high school library.
So the high school gym.
The high school gym, the high school cafeteria, and the high school library.
Do I have a
So moved.
move by Beth, second by Kate? Is there any other conversation or discussion on this?
Can you just read it again?
Sure. To support the superintendent's recommendation to utilize the remaining Hollis Brookline High School renovation funds to install LED lighting in the gym, the cafeteria, and the high school library.
I guess the only question is, are the renovation funds an actual identified
That would be, that is what was put forth and passed by the voters in the bond.
So do you want to further delineate that it's from the
lease
bond?
section.
From the
Okay.
approved bond? I'm just, because.
Okay,
high school
okay.
yeah.
To support the superintendent's recommendation to utilize the remaining lease funds from Hollis Brookline High School's renovation project to install LED lighting in the gym, the cafeteria, and the high school library.
So, somebody pull their motion from before,
I will pull my motion.
And- that's great, and now put the new motion in, thank
Yep.
you. And second,
So moved.
so you good? Still second, moved by Beth, second by Kate, are you better?
Yeah, I just didn't, because renovation
Should I pull it
funds,
again?
Okay.
was kind of ambiguous.
Are we all good on that? Was that even close to what you can do? I don't know. Any other questions?
She withdrew her motion.
Yep.
She did, okay.
And
we
then I
did.
put another one.
Great.
That's appropriate.
Okay, good, that's great.
No, I'm looking, Tom shaking his head
I
like.
know, he's making me
Shaking my
nervous.
head.
Okay, all those in favor? 700, motion carries. Okay, now we need a report out from the process observer, I think. Sure.
Well, remarkable as it may be, despite the setback of an extended
Non-public.
non-public, we are actually running slightly ahead of the agenda schedule for completion, which is a nice accomplishment. I think that all things went well, things were well discussed, and the work that was done was good. It was really good to get, it was really good to get the student input.
Yes.
One of the things that I think that we could do if we would like to have shorter meetings is find a way that the principal reports don't necessarily get read verbatim.
Okay.
I mean, could perhaps start with the first thing on principal reports is, are there any questions about the principal reports
Sure.
which could highlight it? But some people like having the whole thing read so that if someone hasn't looked at it, they'll get to see it. So that's just my observation. Other than that, it's very well run with a good sense of humor.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
moved by Beth,
Second.
second by Kate, all those in favor? 7-0, we are out at 8:26 PM.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.